Hey everyone, I am Jordan Garcia, and this is the Twitter's Hidden Gems podcast, the show where we interview, highlight, and get to know small creators on Twitter. The goal is simple. We'd like these largely undiscovered people who are incredible at what they do to move from hidden gems to discovered gems. We'll hear about their backstories, their failures, successes, and journey to make their side projects their main source of income. And who knows, we may look back a year from now only to realize that we got to interview the now widely successful content creator when they were just starting. Let's get into the interview. Hey Aidan, thanks for joining the Twitter's Hidden Gems podcast. It's great to have you, man. Can you tell us where you're joining from and tell us about yourself?
Yeah, of course. So, hey everyone, my name's Aidan Dhaliwal. I'm currently tuning in from Birmingham, the UK, so just across the pond, a few miles away from you, and in the States. But I actually lived there for a couple of years, lived between California and Texas. But born and raised here, I'm back here. And yeah, who am I? I'm currently a guy, a man, just who loves life. But I'm currently working I work in digital marketing. So I'm actually an SEO accounts manager for an agency here in the UK. But I love traveling, love coffee. I love a good coffee. Picked that up from my time in the States. And then also I'm currently building a personal brand here on Twitter as well.
I love it, man. So I have to dig in on the coffee because I'm a huge coffee drinker myself. If I remember correctly, you used to work at a coffee shop, right?
That's right.
Okay. What was your favorite drink to make yourself and enjoy while you were on the clock?
Oh, that's a great question. So to keep it real short, I actually hated coffee. I think tea's more of the bigger thing here. You know, it's a very British thing to do. It's a
Right.
British thing to drink. But out in my time in America, I had a roommate actually who was from New Zealand, and he was massive on coffee, massive. Would always wake up, he'd be making a Chemex, pour over, doing the whole thing. I hated it at first, but he kind of converted me slowly. You know, went from like top vanilla latte, and it trickled through to now I'm just a huge filter drinker. I love a good filter coffee. Give me AeroPress, give me a pour over, but yeah, I'm a big AeroPress guy, and so I'd usually make one of them, whatever beans we're in. I do love a good Colombian, so yeah.
I do. I do too. I love to
There
hear
we
that,
go.
man. So now that you're in the UK, what is the coffee to tea ratio? I mean, do you still drink a lot of coffee or have you replaced it with more tea lately? What's it been like?
So to be honest, so I am actually allergic to dairy. Like, not one of the people who's like, I don't like dairy, but like, I'm actually fully like anaphylactic shock if I have lots
Oh,
of
wow.
dairy. So I've never actually been a tea drinker, mainly because obviously most people have the milk in the tea. So yeah, I'm pretty pure coffee, black coffee, pretty much every day. Yeah.
Man, I'm the same, by the way. I have about 2 cups in the morning. I drink it black. Yeah, from the folks that I've read information from on Twitter, they all recommend waiting about an hour to an hour and a half after
Yeah,
you wake up to do it. So I've built that into my system now where I wake up, I'll work out, and then when I get back, it's like an hour and a half later, then I start the coffee. So
yeah.
hopefully those Twitter gurus will be proud of me for doing that.
That sounds good from the research I've done as well. It sounds like the right way to go, right way to use caffeine, and as well as enjoying actually some of the benefits of coffee.
For sure. And they do say one of the big benefits is not having an afternoon crash, and I don't have that anymore. So spot on
Yeah,
for that.
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
absolutely. Something I love to ask people, and I'm putting you on the spot because I didn't tell you I'd ask you this.
Okay.
What's been on your mind the most lately? What have you been thinking
Ooh,
about?
ooh, what a question. Ah, that is a really great question. But I think for me, quite simple one, and I'm sure we're going to get into this in the podcast, but it's really my why. Like what I'm doing, why I'm building, why I'm kind of designing my life the way I am right now, which is that I am planning to get married and move to Germany in 12
Dude,
months.
holy cow.
So my girlfriend to be fiance soon. Don't tell her that. Well,
Wait, does she,
she already
okay, I was
knows.
about to say, I was like, does she not know? I have to hide this.
She doesn't know when it's coming, actually, so this is perfect. She's probably listening, and if you are, I love you. But and you get ready for a surprise. But yeah, so we actually met out in America during our time, and it was crazy. It's a whole story, but the short version is that we actually got into an official relationship 10 days before we both had to leave. So I had to
Oh,
come back to the UK and she had to go back to Germany. And so we've actually just celebrated being 2 years together,
congrats, man.
literally on May the 2nd, so a couple of days ago. And so our plan is that, yeah, in 12 months we're going to be starting our, new life out in Germany. And so the way I'm building my whole life right now, the way I'm doing my time, my job, my Twitter, the whole thing is geared towards that. So that's on my mind at the moment. Yeah,
Man, what a great answer. That's exciting too. So you're looking to get married in the next year, and you just hit 2 years in the relationship. You're building
that's right.
everything back on your why. So I have a practical question for you, because we've heard from folks like Simon Sinek, hey,
Yeah, yeah.
start with why. It's a really big popular phrase to begin with your why, start with your why. How do you practically get your why in front of you and tie your why to your daily actions or to your weekly or monthly actions? How do you practically do that from your perspective?
That's a great question. And before I answer that, I realized I didn't say this, so I just want to say, first of all, massive honor to be here. Jordan, what you're doing is great. We actually met on Twitter. I think it was, yeah, just from how it goes, you connect, tweets, and then a DM, and we've connected a bit. And so,
Yeah.
first of all, just want to say massive honor to you. I know what you're building here is really cool. And some of the people you've had on here is amazing. People I've actually connected with, learn a lot from myself. So just to be a face on here is amazing. So thanks for having me to stop.
Thank you, man. It's an honor to have you. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. And then secondly, so the why. So so the way I like to put it, I always tell people, the way I remind myself is um the why is like the fuel in the car.
Hmm.
So what I mean by that is, you're in your car and you've got a destination to get to, but as much as there are practical things to do and is a journey to follow, an actual path in front of you, the why is the fuel. The why is the fuel that is going to get you there, because there are times where it's like anything. You want to build a body in the gym, well, guess what, you have to have a why, because what's going to happen is on that way from here, from A to B, are a set of ups, yes, but there are also a set of some big downs and some big challenges, and a plenty of opportunity to have self doubt, to quit, to not believe in yourself, to want to retreat. And these things are big. They're easy to say on a podcast like this, like, yeah, we know the self doubt and stuff, but these things are big when they really hit, especially when
Yeah.
you're trying to build something big and you've never done it before. And so it's like on your way to the mountaintop, you're going to go through some of those little valleys, those dark valleys. And in a dark valley, you can't see much.
Hmm.
But your why is like the light. It's like the light in the tunnel. It's going to carry you through. And so I have that, to be honest. I have that in my journal. I'm always journaling about it. I'm thinking about it. I have reminders on my phone that are popping up. But mainly it's something I filter everything through. So anytime I
Yeah.
have something challenging, so for example, let's say, at work, there's a client that it's extremely difficult. It's going to take a lot of skill to, meet a certain goal and a campaign, or it's on Twitter with some of the goals I have with audience building. Um, Whatever it is, there are challenges that come. But when I just sit and when it's overwhelming, I just stop. I get out my journal, and it's like you just start feasting on your why. It doesn't take long before that fuel meter is going up, and you're ready to take it on. So that's kind of how I see it.
That's a beautiful analogy. It really is, thinking about it as fuel, thinking about it as something that you filter everything through. And when you're going through a dark season, something that you cling to and go back to draw fuel from, encouragement from, whatever it may be.
Hmm.
So this is on your mind. You have a good process for keeping it top of mind. Would you be willing to share what your why is?
Yeah. So my why is pretty simple. It's actually really simple when you boil it down. Is that so? We'll probably get into this maybe a bit, but obviously when I left school at 18, I went to America. So I didn't go to the conventional university way. I went to America, and partly the reason was because I wanted to do something completely different. I didn't really understand what I wanted to do. So I always question what I see in front of me. And I'm not going to get too deep into this, but with like, okay, university, is it right? The way things are meant to be, the system we kind of grow up into. I always
Yeah.
thought about that and realized I don't really know what I'm doing or why I want to do something. So I'd rather step back before making a massive decision or something that's going to have big consequences. So I moved to America, and there's a bunch of reasons for that. But ultimately, for me now, why I'm building all of this is pretty simple. Two things. I actually have a goal of one day being the best husband and father on the planet. So I do believe, actually, deep down, that most of problems in our society are actually rooted to a dysfunctional home. And I believe that, a healthy family with present parents, uh, present, parents, and then relationships with between them and their children is the key to actually shaping the world. And so that is actually my why. Um, and obviously, with that comes a goal to have a level of freedom to be able to do that. So I know that, a standard route in life is, you go to university, you take on the debt, you get the degree, you, you get your job. And I'm not saying any of that is wrong. It's, I'm not going to go down that. That's not for now. But what it is that the way things are traditionally, especially when I grow up, how I see people is that you're so exhausted from spending most of your one shot at this life, spending most of it giving everything to build somebody else's dream, that
Hmm.
you have this eensy tiny bit in the tank left for your partner, your spouse, and these kids that you're raising. And the way I see it is, we got this one shot at this life. What is actually important? Like,
Yeah.
what are the real important things that matter living for? And when you find them, you have to find a way to give yourself the freedom to actually live and enjoy and build for those things. And so that's kind of my why, which is the way I'm systemizing my work, my skill set, my business, my finances, is pretty much to open up the opportunity and the freedom for me to be a present husband, father, and then to really build life um, on our terms, for what we deem matters. So that's how I'd answer the question.
Absolutely. That's a great answer. And I don't say this to create some sort of false sense of camaraderie, but I have the exact same why. I'm not kidding you.
Wow.
So m- my mom listens to this podcast, and I hope she doesn't mind me sharing this. But I grew up without my dad present, and that's shaped a lot of my life. And I remember being 8 years old and looking at the gap that I felt in my life, the absence of a father. And I'm not blaming anyone here when I say that, but I remember making a commitment to myself when I was 8 years old. And I'm not kidding, I still remember doing this. And I told myself, when I grow up, I'm going to be the best husband and the best father I could possibly be, because I'm on the receiving end of the lack of that in my life, because my father wasn't present. And so I kid you not, man, like that's been my MO, that's been my why, that's been the foundation for everything that I do, is at the core of it all. If I cannot be a great husband while doing X, if I cannot be a great father while doing whatever else, I have no interest in it. If it's
Wow.
not congruent, if I can't do that while also first being a good husband and a good father, I don't want any part of whatever that thing may be. So this is exactly my why as well. I think in a weird way, this is probably why we connected. I think we probably resonated without even knowing what we valued. I think some of this stuff is in between the lines when you see people post online. You can kind of see and gauge what they value. So I wanted to let you know, and I'm not saying this again for points, but truly these are my two top reasons of my why as well.
That's really awesome, man. That's really cool to hear.
Yeah, and I think you can't go wrong tying it back to the people in your life that matter the most. You know, your spouse, your future kids. By the way, I'm going to be a dad for the first time this coming August. So,
Oh man, congrats, man. That's
yeah,
so awesome. It's not far
thank
away.
you. Not far away at all. So it's the rubber's going to meet the road. I'm going to have to
Oh,
really
wow.
learn this. I'm excited. I'm nervous. I'm a bunch of things, but at the same time, I've been looking forward to this since I was a kid. And I didn't rush it.
That's it.
My wife and I were both 30, so we didn't rush this. We built some career stability at first. We have a home and all this. We have financial stability. We
Yeah,
wanted to
yeah.
do that before we settled down. We did some traveling, but now I get to finally do this thing I've been looking forward to for a long time. So I just
That's
wanted to call
awesome.
that out, man. Like
That
I
makes me
totally
happy.
resonate.
That makes me happy to hear, man. That's really cool. Really, really cool.
Yeah. But beyond that, you did mention that the second part of your why is that you'll need a level of freedom
Right.
to spend time with your family, do life on your terms.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
can you tell me about what you're building online and how you envision it supporting the freedom that you want in your future?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. So I can give you a brief rundown. I think this ties down into a bit of my story. So yeah, so what happened is I left England. I went to America when I was 19, and the reason for that was actually a bit of an interesting journey. It was a mixture of wanting to do something different. I wanted to open up my mind. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to see how other cultures work, how other people work, what's important in the world. But also, I also went on a journey of faith as well, where I wanted to explore more about faith and God, because I thought, if God is real and faith is real, then it's kind of the most important thing there is to follow.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I thought I want to build the foundation of my life on that, because otherwise it's all vanity. This is all gonna, at a click of a finger, it's gone one day. And so
Yeah,
that was my journey, and that ended up taking me studying and traveling and doing a few things. I ended up actually living in the same state as where you are. I think you're there right now, right? Texas. So
I'm in Dallas.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I was a couple hours from you. I was in Houston in a place called Spring, and I was
Yep.
actually working with like a non-profit organization, helping run like events for kind of like youth, young adults across downtown Houston and underprivileged teenagers in Houston. And it was a blast. It was absolute blast. That was kind of my role, leading workshops, training teams, all this stuff. And I was 20, I was 20 years old, 21 years old. So
Yeah.
this kid from England doing all that. And so what ended up happening was, the long story short is, because of the pandemic rolled around and a lot of unexpected changes with visas and how that impacted kind of my stay, I ended up having to come home to England, to the UK, which was it was a shock, because my whole world got turned upside down. Obviously, didn't have anything back here, foundation, anything to fall upon. Obviously, I had my girlfriend, um, and we had obviously started our long distance relationship. We knew we were gonna planning on getting married eventually. Um, so I had to get to work because I had my why that was starting to form. And even though I had a pretty unbelievable life at this point, some of the experiences I had, some of the people I'd met, the connections I'd made in terms of my network, I had to build something here. And so this is literally what I did. I decided to, number one, get a job at a coffee shop because I like coffee. And the funny thing is, I said to myself, I was like, I want to try and get a job at like the best. I don't want to stay here long, because you don't live work at a coffee shop for the rest of your life. But if I'm going to do it, let's try and get a job at the best one in the city. So I ended up somehow getting a job at the best coffee shop in Birmingham, phenomenal coffee shop and roastery. Um, so I was working there for a couple of months. But what I was saying was to myself, how do I design my life to be, regardless of where me and my future wife are going to be, whether it's here, if it's the States, if it's Germany, how can I design my life in a way that gives me the flexibility, first of all, and then obviously builds my life and cash flow and investment strategy in a way where we can be, um, you know um, in a good place financially, whether that's total financial freedom, or there's a good level of cash flow coming in, but a sense of location freedom. So what I literally
Yeah.
did was, okay, I'm going to go build. I'm going to find and I'm going to build a high income skill. So I went on, literally, this is what I did. I went on Google. I tried a few things up in this point. I tried over the years. I dabbled in forex. I dabbled in um, drop shipping. I dabbled in what else did I dabble in? FBA. Just looked around at all this stuff and it just didn't click. So I thought, okay, I think I need as you're young, you're kind of figuring that out. Okay, quick fix. Oh, well, let's try and make money. Da, da, da. Um, so I went on Google, I typed in highest paying skill sets in 2022, and I looked at a list, and I saw SEO and digital marketing. And I looked and I saw it and I thought, okay, which one of these skills can I filter through my strengths and passions? So I knew that I'm a very good communicator. I'm a good writer. I'm a good problem solver, and I'm really good with people at finding solutions. So I saw this and I was like, this is it. This is perfect for me. So literally what I did was over the next like 2 months, I went to town on SEO and marketing. While I was working at this coffee shop, every waking breath I was learning. I was buying courses, books, videos, everything to learn SEO. Um, and eventually, from that, I had learned enough to, I was going to eventually go and start my own thing. But what happened was really last minute, had a memory flash into my mind of this guy who had started his own agency many years back, an old friend of mine. And I remember he started, so I saw it and I said, maybe I could, check it out and see how he's doing. And I realized, oh my gosh, this guy's absolutely taken off. The company started in 2019 and, scaled it to like multiple six figures in a
Oh,
few years. And so I thought, oh my gosh, rather than just starting my own up willy nilly, I'm just going to see if this guy remembers me, not to get a job. I just wanted to ask questions. Just wanted to ask this guy some questions and learn from his experience to see if I could pull some of the gold out of his story to take before going and doing my own. So he ended up remembering me in an Instagram DM, literally, and then he invited me to his office, and it ended up being a conversation where we just got chatting. He knew that I went to America, heard a bit about my story. He told me about a bit about the business, and then he asked me a bit about what I've learned about marketing so far, like what SEO, and just told him all the stuff I knew. And literally out the blue, which really shocked me, he just said, "You know what? This is really crazy that you're here, but I'm literally looking for one specialist, like SEO specialist, that I just need to build for
yeah,
where we're going. I'll just give it to you right now."
it's amazing.
So on that moment, literally drop of a hat, everything changed. And fast forward now, I'm like an SEO and digital marketing accounts manager, so I oversee the campaigns of like clients' businesses across the UK, Europe. These are like 7 figure per month, like revenue generating businesses, and I'm like overseeing their campaign of how they're going to generate traffic, leads, sales, revenue for their business online.
Yeah,
Um, and so what's really amazing is, and this is separate from Twitter, but it's going to tie in, is that now that has given me a skill set, experience, and a skill set that now I can take wherever I want. So it's kind of like on that why, step one is complete. If we take away the Twitter, which I'm going all into, and I'm convinced that will work. But let's say if it doesn't, great. I have a high income skill set that I
hmm
can just pull a laptop up and do from anywhere in the world. So that's kind of unlocked that first level of having the flexibility to achieve the why. Yeah.
yeah, that's amazing. So you mentioned coming to Texas. You somewhere in there intertwined was a faith journey,
hmm
and you wanted to figure that out. I'm curious, what did you find? How did that journey go? What did it leave you with?
Okay. Wow, that is a big question, and this that will take the podcast to a slightly different level if you want. Um, but I'm happy
Let's
to
d-
share.
let's dabble on the surface because that resonates with me too, if you don't mind.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'll share what I have, and you tell me what you want and what's too much, or if you want more. But
Sure.
I am actually I'm a follower of Jesus. So that is the faith that I belong to, and that journey came by through number one, um, my experience of what God's done in my life, what He's done with my family, and the things that I've seen with my own eyes, which I have changed my life. But
Yeah.
secondly, has also come through my own study. So have came. I personally believe what led me on that journey was okay. We're on this earth and we're here for 80 years, whatever it is. One day, this is all gonna zap away. It is gonna zap away,
Yeah.
and I want to know what I believe and why I believe it because it's very important. So the journey I went on was I came as a humble investigator, humble objective investigator, and upheld all the different worldviews and religions in front of me. And this is crazy that we're going down this road, but I'll end up very quick. But it's after a lot of study, after upholding all of the different worldviews from historical, um, as well as a scientific based approach, I came to the belief that from what my study, from the experiences that I had, the people I met, and the things that I saw, for me, it's actually became more having to take more faith for me to not believe in the way of Jesus.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the journey I went through, and that was life changing. Honestly, the way that have changed my life, the things that happened in my family, friends, and then kind of the journey it's set. And to be honest, it's kind of part of the why, because obviously your faith or your belief about the end determines how
Yeah.
you live in the middle. So for me, you know, the faith of a follower of Jesus is that, you know, um, we are all born with this bent against God for our own desires and our own destruction. There's this thing in our heart, we're all destroying ourselves, we're destroying each other. Um, and in a real nutshell, because obviously this is very deep, but we had no way to save ourselves.
Right.
Um, but the way of Jesus is that he came, he died as a man and
Yep.
took on the mess and the issues and the dysfunctions of mankind, so that you could have a relationship with him through belief in him and then turning away from your own dependence. But the beautiful thing is that he, we believe that he now comes and gives you a new heart so that you
Right.
see things differently. And so, from my perspective, is that's what's happened to me. I don't live just for myself, um, my own desires, and just to have a nice time and have money, but part of it is to have an impact on the world. You know, it's just so messed up. Our world's so broken. It is lost. Everyone's
Yep.
confused and everyone's hurting and they need hope. Um,
Yeah.
and part of that is, yeah, I want to obviously play a part of that and at least raise a family that are whole and healthy and that can have, you know, an impact in the world. So that's kind of the nutshell of a very deep journey.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And I know I didn't mean to put you on the spot, by the way, but everything that you've said absolutely resonates with me. I'm in the same boat. So my wife and I are actually young adults pastors at our
No way.
church.
That's
Yeah, I'm a
insane.
musician. We're both really involved. It's been the fact a cornerstone foundation of my life. I know it can feel like you can potentially alienate yourself from your Twitter audience or from people when you bring this up. And I don't mean to do that with us having this conversation, but this is at the foundation of your why and why you do what you do.
Yeah,
It's at the
absolutely.
foundation of what I do and why I do it, and it's why I also value my family and my kids and my wife and what I do in working with integrity. It all comes from my faith.
100%,
So
100%.
I think we'd be remiss to not include that in the conversation if that's actually what's
Yeah,
underneath the why and what we do. So I'm everything that you said absolutely resonates with me. It's I believe I'm also a Christian, and it's
amazing.
something I'm passionate about. I'm not gonna try to tell everyone that they need to stop believing what they believe or things like that, but I will always do my best to honor God in what I do with my life, with my
Amazing.
business, and
Yeah,
there's doing things with excellence and giving back to people. And so funnily enough, I'm just pivoting real quick because I had no plans to go here. I had no idea this would be on the table.
it's
As
crazy.
somebody that's involved in the personal finance space, one thing I've noticed that I've been hesitant to comment on is every guide that you see out there about budgeting. They'll like there's the 50-30-20 rule,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
There's things like that. What I've noticed, the majority of these don't ever account for charitable giving, tithes,
Generosity.
offerings,
Yeah.
generosity,
Mm.
whatever you do. And so I won't talk percentages because I don't want to alienate anybody that's listening, but my wife and I, we set a specific percentage of our monthly income
Mm.
to give, and to
Yeah,
give
yeah.
to the church, to give to people. And that's something that I don't see talked about in the personal finance world because maybe because it could alienate half the audience and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
don't want to do that. But I've noticed, to be frank with you, the percentage that we're giving away, if you were to look at it objectively, you're like, dude, why are you giving
What
away
are you
so much
doing?
of your
This is
money?
stupidity. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
I'm in the same
And
boat.
to be even more transparent with you, my wife and I are nearing the end of paying off our student loans, right?
Wow.
We're crushing our debt. She has a master's degree, I have a bachelor's degree. We're near the end, and I'll be honest, when I've looked at how much we've given away, I could have paid off my debt a long time ago. And people would look at that and think, "What are you doing,
Crazy.
man? Like
Yeah.
that's not personal finance smart. That's not personal finance wisdom. Like, why would you do that? But
Right,
for me,
right.
man, at the end of the day, I don't feel like I am an island. I don't feel like I got my job by myself, or that I've been blessed with the things that I've been blessed with by myself, or it's at my hands. I feel like it came from the blessings of God personally.
Hmm.
And so I would be a fool to think, you know what, all this money that I've accumulated is mine and I can't
Right.
give it back. So
Hmm.
I want to first honor what I feel is a blessing. Like, look, my income is, I don't own it. I feel like I've just been blessed to receive it, and I want to give some of it back. And so, I know we're pivoting. I hope people that are listening that don't resonate with this, that you just give us some grace. But this is something that I think I think we'd be dumb to overlook why it's beneath what both you and I do. And so, I hope this is okay with you.
Absolutely. To be honest, I didn't expect. This is crazy. If you're listening, this is not planned at all. Literally, we are finding this out the same time live on this call. But it's true. At the end of the day, everyone filters their life through what they believe, and whatever that might be, you know. But the reality is that is a rock that should be stronger than anything else. So I can stand here today wholeheartedly and say, if you, I would, I would drop everything else that I'm about to say, Twitter, audience, all that stuff, drop that like this for my faith. And
Yeah.
so I think if someone might watch that and think that, you know, that's crazy. But I hope that in some way gives, even though you might disagree, a level of integrity that if you know what, if we actually do believe what we believe, then it is kind of the most important message and also important lifestyle one could live. So the main question is actually, if you believe that and you weren't living a certain way or didn't share a certain message, then that's an actual problem. Because if you did
Right.
believe something, then surely the best and most loving thing would be to live that out if you really believed it. And so that's at the heart of what we do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want you to know, again, I would never say something just to get fluff out there, but I've noticed when you comment on Twitter, when you are posting things on Twitter, I think one of the hidden tones underneath your messages, your comments is there's kindness, there's encouragement,
Mm.
there's belief in others, there's this desire to lift others up at the expense of not promoting yourself. And that shows, and I took note of that even before coming into this call. I was like, man, Aiden's just a good dude. He's a good dude, and you can just tell
Great.
from his post. And so now learning why your character is the way that it is, it makes perfect sense.
Wow.
But yeah, so kudos to you for letting that shine through, even without, you're not blasting from the rooftops this message that you're a Christian, that you're a follower of Jesus, but it shows in your tone, it shows in how encouraging you are to others and how you lift others up. And so I wanted to leave you with that. And I'm not saying that again haphazardly or just because, but I mean that. Um, we'll bring it back on track to business, because I know I could
Sure.
go down this route for a good while, and
Maybe we will one day eventually. We'll do it again.
we'll have to dig into it later on. But going back to what you're building on Twitter, I
Yeah.
noticed you made a recent pivot. Can you
Pivot,
help
yeah.
us understand, what led to the pivot, and then what you're specifically doing now, and,
Mm.
and what that looks like from a business perspective?
Absolutely. So, yeah, great question. So, what I decided to do was obviously I have my job and as an SEO, but what I wanted to do was I wanted to, it's an obvious, build a business. That's if anyone's looking to achieve what we're trying to achieve, we know that it's always going to come through some assets that you've built on the side of through some kind of business. So, I decided to put everything on hold in terms of all the other things that is out there to do and decided to just go and leverage myself. And I think what one of the craziest videos I came across that was the awakening of that was actually a video, funnily enough, from Andrew Tate. And we won't go into opinions or anything, but what he said was actually kind of crazy. Someone said, if everything was to be taken away from you right now, how would you build yourself up to where you are? And he said, instantly, I know exactly what I do. He said, number one, I'd build an audience. And number two, I'd solve a problem and monetize the problem. And I was like, oh my goodness, wow. And so I thought, okay, that's what I'm going to try and do. I don't really know exactly what I'm doing, but I'm going to do it because it's true. In the world we live in, the digital landscape with everything going digital, if you have a audience Number one, that are following you for some specific reason, whether that's who you are as a person, a brand, or a problem you solve. You have a very powerful asset going into the world we're in. So that was the start. So I literally, a few other things that I started with, a few um, different videos and different people I was following, but I ended up going on Twitter and I literally decided, I had no idea what I was going to do, but I just decided how I'm going to mix what I'm good at, which was communicating, writing, ideas, and then some of my passions, which was marketing and money. I think one of my big passions was kind of the financial illiteracy of our
Sure.
generation. So I thought I'm just going to go with that. So at that first, it was kind of down the finance, investing kind of skill set route, and it was really good. It was kind of my first few months on Twitter. I was talking about finance, talking about money, I was making a lot of connections with different people like yourself, growing, slowly. Um, but I think what eventually happened was that even though this is what I was passionate about, I realized that as I'm leading towards my why, I realized that this is probably not the best route that's going to help take me to my why in terms of actually monetizing a business. Because at the end of the day, I had to look at myself and realize, I'm really glad I did this because most people never start. So I'd rather start, iterate, and progress rather than never start because of perfection.
Right.
And what I decided to do was, leverage kind of my skill set. So I realized, you know what, at the end of the day, I could grow this to 10,000, 100,000 followers, whatever it is, but I'm not a money coach. There are better finance accounts than me who are actually really good at this and want to do this, number one. And number two, yeah, I'm not a money coach. I'm not going to make products around, finances. I'm just very passionate about the concept of wealth creation in our world.
Hmm.
Um, but I said, okay, what am I? Number one, I'm a marketer. I'm a writer. I'm a communicator. I'm a problem solver. I'm a coach. I'm really good with people. I believe in people. I know how to see the best in people. And so I decided, you know what? Especially as you get into Twitter and you see this world of personal branding, I realized, something came alive in my heart where I realized I'm really passionate about this. I'm actually really passionate about, because I know I've been there, having a high income skill, whether that you're a coder, a designer, a brand design, like whatever it is, SEO. Um, but the world we're in, everything's pivoting. Economy, it's an unbelievable time to build a brand, a name for yourself, and offer a skill set through that. And I realized, I'm really passionate. I'm basically doing this for other businesses across the world. I want to do this for myself. So I decided I'm going to go down that route and I'm going to actually build my own personal brand and then eventually go on to monetize it. But the difference is, what I've decided to do is I could probably grow and monetize my account 10 times faster if I went down the SEO route and grew an audience that became loyal to me because of, number one, my skill set and the problems I solve, but two, because I'm having a unique personality, some of the other insights I share, that people kind of build trust with you based on who you are and then offer services. But if I'm being honest, as much as I do SEO, and I'm very thankful for my job, and if there's one job I could do, it'd probably be this. But outside of that, I'm not passionate about it enough to build a whole brand around it. What I
Sure.
am passionate about is helping other people take their high income skill set, like solopreneurs, and turn that into an irresistible personal brand. So, what I've decided to do in the journey I'm on is I've actually, it seems like everyone's a Twitter growth guy right now. Everyone and
Yeah.
their mom and their cat and their dog and their coffee beans are all Twitter growth people. So I decided, okay, how are you going to stand out? And maybe I'm giving away my source right now, but I think it's good because you can't really replace me because I'm
You
me.
can't.
But this is the way I've gone and done it. And this is probably the most important thing I'll say is instead of coming in as an expert, I'm just coming in with my why. So if you look at my banner, it's in my bio, sorry, it says, I believe, um, dissatisfied SEO turned brand architect. In 12 months, I'll leave my job um, and move to Germany. How? Follow along as I build and monetize an irresistible personal brand. So what I've done is I've led with my why, um, and I've come in as a learner, as someone who is learning, documenting their journey. But as I'm doing that, I'm also leveraging my skills at the same time. So people can see that I'm a writer, people can see that I'm a marketer through my tweets, my threads. I've been doing tons of studying, like, and researching into what makes a good personal brand. I've done courses, I've taken calls. I pay like a couple hundred a month. I'm doing from coaching from great brand and growth guides on Twitter. Some of the absolute one guy I can give him a shout out,
Leo?
Leo. Leo, oh my gosh! I mean, everyone's probably following him anyway, but he is a real guy, and I can't believe I was actually one of the first guys to be working with him, really, and we've made a real cool connection. And so learning a lot, documenting my journey, but I know that eventually I will become the point where the learner and people are following me because of my journey, seeing if I can achieve my why, and maybe building trust with me because of my personality, my storytelling, my journey. But I know eventually, and this is what I'm crafting actually in the meantime, is that eventually when I move from learner to authority, then I'll be able to come in as a guide and help other people who have a skill set, which is probably the why, helping other people who have a high income skill set build and then monetize that personal brand on Twitter.
I love this. And I love this because it's going back. We're probably going to say the word why so many times in this podcast episode, but it's tying everything back to your why, which inevitably brings in this layer of storytelling. So when
Mhm.
someone comes in, when someone lands on your Twitter page, they're joining a story that's in the process of being written,
Right.
and they get to watch what's happening, and then they get to take insights from you and figure out how can I apply what he's teaching or sharing and apply it to my journey and my story. And you can't go wrong when you do this, because any effective brand, any effective company
Mm,
nails storytelling, specifically if they're looking to be good at marketing. Good marketers are good storytellers. And so
absolutely.
I love the positioning that you've done here where you said, hey, I didn't come in as an expert. I'm coming in as somebody that's on a journey, and I'm telling my story about this journey, and you get to watch. And then eventually over time, I'll go from being somebody that's just a learner or just on the journey to somebody that is an expert, somebody that is a guide. And so that is very wise. It's very smart, very business savvy to do that. And by the way, I didn't mean to cut you off when I said Leo earlier, but I've exchanged a few DMs with Leo, and quite frankly, I'm still at the early stage of my Twitter journey and all of this and monetizing and all that stuff. And I think I would have a difficult time convincing my wife, like, hey, let me spend a couple $100 per month for coaching. So we're working through this, but I think I think what I
Where
want to
does
do
it
first
cost?
is, yeah, well, and I want to show that there is like there's money to be made in a very, of course, if you do it right. And I don't mean that like in a slimy way, like I would never take any shortcuts, but I didn't want to do all this upfront spending and just basically ask my wife, like, hey, trust me, like in a year from now I'll make it back. And
Yeah.
so there's probably a give and take and ebb and flow here, but I brought all that to say that I've actually strongly considered working with Leo in the past, and so I knew who you were talking about because I've heard great things about him, and
Mm,
we'll see what the future holds. But that's
that's amazing.
awesome, man. I love your story here, and I love what you're working on. And so you're taking what you've already built expertise in, you're building it out. How difficult was it to make that pivot when you
Yeah.
decided to go from focusing on wealth creation, personal finance, to personal brand building? How
Yeah.
difficult was that? Did it take a lot of thought, contemplation? What was that process like behind the scenes in your mind?
Yeah, that is a really, really good question. How I'd answer that is two part. I think number one was in some way it was actually really easy because it was something I was really passionate about and I was really excited about. So to actually, yeah, think, okay, now I'm going to really follow what I'm passionate about and really good at. This is really exciting. Why it was also good was I didn't just do it for the sake of doing it, but I had some other factors going down. Um, Behind the scenes as well. Number one, obviously feedback from people like Leo, coaches about my skill set, what I'm good at, how if it's really a good decision. Having good people around you speaking into that, that's really helpful. But also a bit of data as well. I use analytics. I use Twitter analytics, but also use Hype Fury, which is the scheduling tool. But to double down on the content and the things that you were saying that are working the most, and I realized that a lot of people who were engaging with my stuff and my tweets and my content were the connections you made in the finance space, but a lot of them were the growth, personal branding, Twitter uh, guys and people who are on that journey, because I did share a lot about also underneath the wealth stuff was a lot about marketing, was a lot about writing, a lot about your why, a lot about high income skills, because I talked about that a lot. And so I realized, okay, this is not necessarily a bad decision because these are some of my best performing tweets and some of the people I'm drawing in anyway. So actually doubling down on what works is probably a good decision as well. So that was number one. It was difficult, if I'm being honest. It wasn't super rosy because also there's people who, it is a bit scary to think, oh, I've kind of built this audience around, maybe wealth and finance. And so it was a big pivot, it was like the bio's changing, the banner's changing, even my name. It was like called the Wealth Project, which it was at the time, and now it's Aidan Brands. So this is like, oh, I'm kind of like changing my house, and
Yeah.
it's like, will people leave? Will, people not be happy? Will everyone unfollow me? And all that stuff. But I realized actually that what I did was I was very careful about it. So number one, I realized, hang on, if people don't want to follow my new journey, that's okay actually at the end of the day, number one. So I don't have to be bound by what other people think first.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, which was really relieving. But secondly, it's also, if because I wasn't just talking about money, right? I'm not just talking about how to do this, how to do this. People are following you not just because of the tips you're giving. There's something more. It's your person, it's your storytelling, it's your, like you said, the underlying tone. So I said, if people leave, that's fine. But if people stay, who might have come for the finance, maybe they came for the finance, but maybe they'll stay for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's okay too. So while it was hard at times as well, I realized actually, remember, I was never a finance account. I never was to begin with, just a finance account. And what's really cool is that with that, you don't have to stop talking about wealth creation. That's the beauty of personal branding.
Sure.
Personal brand is you have a core pillar, which is what you're offering or the thing you're known for. So in my case now, it's branding, it's personal branding standing out. But remember, great brands, great niches, which makes them the standout personal brand, is that they have a few supporting pillars, which are the pieces of content that they are passionate about and knowledgeable about. So if you look at a lot of the big accounts right now, I can guarantee you don't just follow them because of X. In other words, for example, everyone talks about Danko, probably familiar with him. We
Mm-hmm.
don't just talk about him because we don't just follow him because of growing an audience. Why do we follow him? He could stop talking about that and we'd still follow him because he shares so excellently productivity, spirituality, the whole system we're in as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
He's built supporting pillars that have attached to him, and people follow him for that as well. So I realized I don't have to be afraid of pivoting because I'm actually talking about branding, but I'm very passionate and knowledgeable, and my personality will shine through wealth creation as well. So I actually still talk about that a lot. And I realized, okay, as long as I document the journey, I'll be honest with my readers, I didn't just make this pivot. I I shared updates. I even shared like, I think there's one tweet, and I was really actually shocked by how well it did, especially because I've only got, just around 400 and something followers at the moment. But I think I made a tweet that said, I wasn't expecting it to go down that well. And I think, to be honest, my engagement has actually gone a lot up since this. But I just
Mm-hmm.
made a tweet which said, today I dropped the wealth project from my name. Um, I can't remember what it was, but stay tuned for tomorrow for the journey of why I've done that. And I
Yeah.
got all these comments saying, "Oh my gosh, oh, I can't wait to see tomorrow. Like, wow, this is crazy. I can't wait to see." And then I wrote a whole thread, which I knew wasn't going to take off because it's not a viral growth algorithm friendly thread. It's just me and my story. But it did so well. I was just sharing my journey, sharing the pivot, sharing the why, bringing people into my story. And the amount of feedback it got was insane. It was really good. And a lot of people fell in love with the story. They said, "Oh, you know what, Aidan, that was a great move. I think this really suits you. I'm along for the ride." And I realized, wow, just by sharing your journey, storytelling, being honest, building trust, people start supporting you because of your story and the way your personality shine through what you're writing about.
Yeah. Yes, and I've seen the tweets you're talking about, and they resonated with me too. And when you were announcing your pivot from the Wealth Project to Aiden Brands, it made perfect sense. And from my perspective, I wouldn't unfollow people that I've connected with because I don't want to be topsy turvy. And the only reason I'd unfollow somebody is if they did something egregious, something really bad. I don't even know. That had to be really offensive or something. But I remember thinking, like no matter what you get into, I followed you because of who you are,
Mm.
not what you're talking about. Even if tomorrow you were like, I'm really passionate about vegan nutrition. I'm going to make my entire Twitter page about that. I'd be like, you know what? I'll follow it. I'll still be here because you've built that at the core of what you're building is you. As you said, nobody can replace you. And
Right,
so
right.
I like this, man, and it's helping me. And I'm taking notes, by the way. I'm taking notes on the side here because I'm still working through a lot of these things as well. And transparently, through the month of April, had a pretty rough month mentally. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because I turned 30 and I was just evaluating my entire life or where I want to go, what I want to do. I don't know what it was. Yeah, or if it's just the fact that I'll be a father soon. But I got really introspective, and I was thinking about a lot of stuff, and it made me, I don't know. I lost a lot of bandwidth for Twitter. And so I really kind of took a step back. I would think I was maybe posting one time a day. I sort of lost sight of why I was there, what I'm doing. I've second guessed a lot of this really. And over the past 2 or 3 weeks, I've been able to dig myself out of that hole, make a bit of a
That's great.
recovery. But I'm still working through a lot of the things that you're talking about here. Is like, what do you want your core pillar to be? What are the supporting pillars? How do you tie that into what you talk about? And so I'm figuring all this out
Mm.
literally right now. And
That's
so
great.
this helps to hear. And of course, I'm taking notes. Different
No, that's great.
conversation for a different day. I don't want to bore the audience with that. But another thing I'm curious about is in your pivot or in
Mm.
being someone that is helping others build a brand. You've done it for a few weeks now officially, but is
Yeah.
there anything that people misunderstand about what you do? And if so, what would anyone misunderstand about the work that you do?
Right. It just cut out then, so I kind of missed the last part of the question. Would you mind repeating that for me?
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to ask the work that you do,
Okay.
what's the most common misconception about it? Does anybody misunderstand what you do, whether it be your parents, your
Mm.
girlfriend, friends, people online? What's a common misconception about being someone that helps others build a brand?
It's a great question. And to be honest, they're really interesting. Well, thankfully, most of the stories you would share, I'm actually really thankful in terms of, my parents are very supportive, always have been, of just the life I've kind of chosen. My girlfriend as well, very supportive, especially because she sees the why and is part of that journey. And even online, a lot of people have been, even some of the connections from my audience have been very favorable of it. I'd say maybe the only thing misunderstand, um, I could imagine. I haven't had anything explicitly, but I would say that it would be probably the tangible result. So it would be like, okay, this is the brand, this is the shift. Um, so what are you, what is the result you're going to offer? And to be honest, that's what I'm also figuring out right now. But I think that really helps, the fact that I've decided to go on this journey of coming in as a learner, because I'm not saying this is what I absolutely can do and I'm going to offer you, because there's so many people doing that. It's just ridiculous. It's like I got a DM the other day. It's like, hey man, I love what you do. I'm going to take your account to 10K, with my ghostwriting services. And I hit the account and it's got like 30 followers. I'm like,
Oh yeah.
it's an immediate turn off, isn't it? It's immediate turn off. Like most people would rather you say, "Hey, I'm going to do this eventually, and I'm on a journey. Watch how I do it, and humble yourself.
Hmm.
And they'll build a lot more trust with you than positioning yourself as an expert if you're not. However, the beautiful thing about this is that number one, I can use a lot of my skills that I have as a marketer, as an SEO, that transfer perfectly when it comes to working with businesses, clients, budgets, goals, branding, which I do on a much different and a larger scale. But the good thing is that this is where the concept of building in public happens, where Twitter and the digital world is moving at a rapid pace. And all you have to do necessarily is help people 2 steps behind. So what I
So,
mean by that is, even though I don't have a full scale offer, I have already have like 5 calls booked in where I'm helping people a couple steps behind me build what I've done. And from that, I'm able to, connect to people first, love it, jump on calls, hang out, connect, build your network. But two, as I'm growing, as I'm studying, as I'm researching, as I'm building, as I'm starting to grow, as I'm starting to get more experience, make a bigger network, start to have more social proof through my own account, through my own engagement. You're also helping people a few steps behind. You're getting pain points. You're hearing what
hmm.
people are struggling with. You're getting data of the common patterns of things that people find difficult or find hard or don't know how to do, whether that's how to engage, whether that's how to craft a good DM, whether that's actually how to write practically with white space and lists and not look like a block of text. And then I'm banking these pain points. And as I'm adding value, gaining testimonials, which are adding value to who I am and what I can offer. So over time, as that grows, you're not there's just it's just a win-win. You're helping people behind you, you're getting results for people 2 steps behind you to get where you are, and then you're using all of that to kind of continue to give yourself momentum as you grow. And I think that's the beautiful thing. Number one, about building a personal brand in public is number one, what's the problem you're going to solve? That has to be the question. So mine is how to build a standout personal brand that grows on Twitter. Solve a problem. Number two, document the journey. So I'm my own case study right now. So
Yeah.
if you don't not an expert, become the case study. And then document the journey so people are watching you, your case study unravel. And then eventually, guess what? You're going to be able to monetize the solution because number one, the best results you could show is not just I did this for this guy, I did this for Jack, Bob, Billy. I did this for me. Watch how I did it. Here you go. So it's really powerful. So I think, and that's the beauty about what the whole world we're in right now. But I think it just does take a bit of delayed gratification. That's the main thing. You got to stick to this while no one's looking and while you're not getting applause. Um, but that's where you have to have the why.
Yeah. This is really good. A lot of gold nuggets in here, and I hope the audience can pick those out like I have. We're coming in towards an hour, right, on the call on the episode, and I don't want to go too much longer. But I have one last question, and then we'll land the plane. So, in your journey, you've told me it's been unconventional. You told me that offline. You didn't mention it on the episode. You've had an unconventional path. On your unconventional path, what has been one of your biggest failures, and what did you learn from it?
Dan, that's a great question. Biggest failure, man. Failure. Let me think.
And it doesn't have to be the top one. Just if you can think of a big one, any of the big ones that have happened.
It's a great question. Um, Whoa, that threw me off. I have definitely a few, but I'm just trying to think. The biggest failure or failure.
We can skip the question if you'd like. I don't want to put you on the spot too much.
I want to know. I want to try and think of one because it's a really good question. But I would probably say just simply. I mean, this is real difficult, but you could see it as that. I guess I'll share it. It's a bit different when you have a bit of a different perspective. But I guess the biggest failure was yeah, having to move back from America without necessarily anything to show for it, like a degree, or you move, come back, and there was a lot of a lot of people who laugh at you or think, what, oh my gosh, what are you doing? You're back now. I thought you were going to America and you were there forever, and like you did all these things. Um, and I would say that was difficult, because it did seem like a failure at the time. Um, but to be honest, it's a really bad answer to the question, because then it ended up being really amazing. Turned out really well. But I would say, hmm, I'm kind of
Well,
stuck. Yeah.
I think it's a
So
good answer though, because it could be what felt like a failure at the time.
yeah, yeah,
That you took this time to come to America and you had a plan. And then when you came back from America, you didn't have the results
yeah, yeah.
for why you left in the first place. So that could feel like a failure in that moment. And I'm sure, I would guess from the way you've described it, when you had to come back in that season, not knowing where you'd be in 2023, it may have felt like a failure, right? Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, yeah,
No.
definitely. No, absolutely. Definitely. That's the perfect way of putting it. And I think that's it. I can tie it up. Great. With that, even though it necessarily wasn't a failure, because to be honest, it put me where I am now, which is in a great position. But in those moments, that did come with a lot of stuff. It came with a lot of self-doubt, came with a lot of anxiety and depression, to be honest, where I hit
Yeah.
rock bottom for a while and I was just out of it. I couldn't even hold a conversation with someone because I would just be blank and just kind of drift into my seat. It was terrible.
Yeah.
And I spiraled into just a really hard place of just self-doubt and depression, and it was not fun. And I had to, for a good while, I had to go on a journey, to be honest, of picking myself up, back up, and remembering my why and getting hope in my veins again. Um, and I think that was a journey that I had to go on because of that. Yeah,
Yeah. It's beautiful, man. It's beautiful. Well, I could go for a lot longer. I know it's late on your end. I like to ask this at the end of every episode I do. From our time together, is there anything that you wished I would have asked you that I didn't? And if so, what question do you hope or did you hope I would have asked?
that's a great question. To be honest, I have to be honest. You've done a really good job today. I love the intentionality of your questions. They're not generic. You really pinpoint the stories and you're pulling the gold out. So to be honest, I think you did a really good job. Maybe one question would be, when you're inviting me to come and eat Tex-Mex with you. I'd say that's probably the one I was looking out for. I'm a bit disappointed you didn't ask that, to be honest. That's
Dude,
just
you are
kidding.
you are welcome anytime, but I will tell you, just so you know, Tex-Mex is not my jam, but if you want good Mexican food, so
There,
non-Tex-Mex but
there we
good
go.
Mexican food,
Come
I
on,
got
that's
you.
that's better. That's better. Way better.
Okay. Yes, I think so too. Specifically, I can connect you with some bomb tacos, man, and I
Ooh,
really mean that. Probably some of the best you'll ever have. So, speaking of that, if you're ever in Dallas, please hit me up. I will pick you up and I'll treat you to dinner, and we'll get some bomb tacos, and then we'll take a picture and post it on Twitter so everyone can see that. Hey, maybe these online connections.
I'm really hoping, because I've got some stuff from my time there, some flight stuff. I'm hoping to come out actually at some point this year. So I'll definitely be in the Houston area. But if I have some time, man, I'll definitely come. I'll definitely come up to
Oh,
Dallas.
sweet. And I didn't say this earlier, but I actually grew up in the Houston area and then I moved to Dallas. So I know it. I know it well. I'm in Dallas. Well, I'm in Dallas, of course, because I live here. But yeah, please do. Please tell me if you're ever in the area. We'd love to make that connection happen. But I've enjoyed this, man. And I hope the audience knows I didn't plan for the direction of the call to go the way that it did, but I'm so happy it went that way. And I'm happy we got to connect because I learned a lot about you in just 1 hour,
Yeah.
more than I would have ever learned, I think maybe in a year or two of following you on Twitter. So this has been
Yeah.
an absolute treat for me. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And we'll connect more on Twitter as we go. And I'm looking forward to seeing where your journey takes you. And I'll be a nice little cheerleader on the sidelines.
Nah, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Honestly, it's been a pleasure to come, pleasure to be on it. And yeah, if anyone wants to get in touch with me, feel free. Aidan Brands, hit me up a DM. Really passionate, honestly, when it comes to helping people craft their strategy at the moment. If you're a solopreneur, got a high income skill set, trying to build a personal brand, don't know how to write, don't know what to write about, don't know how to network, don't really know how Twitter works. don't really know how to tell your story, and become an expert at telling your story, or write to kind of leverage your skill set, I'd love to help you and give anything I have to help you grow. So give me a DM.
Yep. And I'll be sure to post your Twitter URL, any websites you have. I'll be sure to scrub your profile to find everything, put it in the show notes so that if somebody wants to find you, they absolutely can and should, in my opinion. So
Sounds like a plan.
Thanks again, Aidan. We'll connect soon. I'll talk to you next time.
Thanks so much for having me, Jordan. See you soon.
Bye. That's it for today's show. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you listened this far, you're the real MVP. If you like this episode, please drop us a 5-star review. For every 5-star review I receive, I'll give my dogs a treat. I swear. Lastly, be sure to follow me on Twitter at The Good Steward. That's THA Good Steward. And if you'd like to nominate someone to be interviewed on this podcast, please send me an email. My email is jcgarciamoney@gmail.com. Until next time, everyone, see you later.